Monetary policy rate goes up by 200 basis points as the Bank of Ghana increases the rate from 16 to 18%. The increase in the rate is the latest adjustment by the central bank after deliberations by the Monetary Policy Committee. The increase in the rate from 16 to 18% is expected to have implications for businesses and individuals who borrow from the banks.
The main purpose of the regulations is to ensure that we continue to use the CD as the legal tender. So when we say transfers between accounts, foreign exchange and foreign currency accounts are not permitted, we are saying that because that is the way by which payments are made for services rendered. We are saying that we are stopping that. But it doesn't mean that you can't use for your foreign exchange account. You can use it if you want to pay or transfer, you change it into cedis and make your transfer. So the foreign exchange stays within the banking system, which is the system that allocates foreign exchange to all the sources. Those deficient sources, they take it from the surplus sources and allocate it to deficient sources. So that is why we are limiting the transfer among those accounts. But it doesn't mean that you cannot use your foreign exchange account. You can use it. You can also transfer monies outside it for payment of goods and services. What you need to do is support those transactions with the appropriate documentation. The bank has a list of documentation we've given them, and they will tell you what documentation you need regarding whatever transfer. If it is for payment of school fees, if it's for imports and so on, you know they will inform you what documentation you need. But there is no restriction on the use of the accounts. It is the transfer where maybe you buy a car or you go and pay rent or buy a house. We are saying that those products should not be priced in dollars, and therefore we will not support or will not allow you to transfer foreign exchange to those accounts.
Now, to support the decision, the central bank has issued a new set of foreign exchange regulations and code of conduct to guide operations in the foreign exchange market. The new measures consist of revisions on the rules for operation of foreign exchange and foreign currency accounts, restrictions on foreign currency denominated loans, repatriation of export proceeds, margin accounts for import bills, and revised operating procedures for forex bureaus. And this, the Bank of Ghana says, is to ensure transparency, streamline activity, and reduce leakages in the foreign exchange markets, and address anti-money laundering issues, and promote the use of the cedi as a sole legal tender. The central bank further asks that all the budgetary targets are strictly adhered to for fiscal consolidation, and said government must seek to broaden the tax base further, diversify and broaden the export base, reduce imports, especially of consumption goods that have local substitutes, and intensify efforts to block foreign exchange leakages such as transfer pricing. There's also the need to consider negotiating existing stability agreements with exporters to ensure that all retention accounts are maintained with domestic banks as pertains in other countries such as Angola, Guinea, and Nigeria, among others. Thanks so much for staying there. My name is Bright Nana, for time to take a look at the MPC meeting and what the fallout were. Dr. Osesibe is an economist from the University of Ghana and has just joined us here on phone. Dr. Osesibe, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for calling me.
Now, first of all,
good evening to your listeners.
Right. First of all, the Bank of Ghana says that having looked at the weakened domestic fundamentals and the fact that there's a need to continue tight fiscal and monetary policies and measures that will reduce the country's vulnerability to shocks and re-anchor inflation expectations, it has increased the policy rate by 200 basis points. Now, would you say that the domestic fundamentals are so weak that we need to go up the policy rate to 18% to be able to check what is happening to the Ghanaian economy?
Yes, precisely so. As the central bank outlined, the domestic fundamental, the macroeconomic fundamental now is quite weak, recording fiscal deficit or budget deficit of about 10.2 and having a trade deficit of about 12.3. That means that there are a lot of demand pressures on the economy. So the best policy mix will be to have a fiscal tightening as well as monetary policy tightening. And so that was expected that the central bank will have to increase the policy rate so that it can mop up the excess liquidity that is fueling inflation pressures and also causing the cedi to depreciate as we are witnessing.
Some are of the argument. For instance, a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament is arguing that the Bank of Ghana is to be blamed for what is happening to the cedi and the Ghanaian economy because they have simply failed to regulate certain laws directly that deals with foreign exchange. Do you share the view?
Yeah, to a large extent, yes, because I think the central bank has sat down for far too long for some of these things to happen. Because if you look at what is happening in the foreign exchange market, it's nothing to write home about because it appears there's no regulation at all regulating the sector, right? If you go to the informal sector, that is the black market, you can see people openly buying and selling foreign currencies. And some of the banks, you put your dollar there and you want to go for it, they will tell you clearly that there are no dollars. And all that has actually damped people's confidence, in the banking sector. That is putting their dollar in the banking sector. So now people prefer to, stash their dollars at home and all that. And so for me, the central bank, although it's now trying to come out with all these measures, I think it's quite a bit late in the day. Because even this issue or this rapid depreciation should have been anticipated, because once you have the risk factors in place, that is having the twin deficit, the budget deficit of about 10%, 12% last year, that is 2012, and then 10.5% last year, 2013, and then the budget, what we call the trade deficit,
right?
Also about 13 or 12.3%. That should have been enough indicator or warning sign to the central bank to begin to put in place measures to arrest the situation, and more so to when we have gone to the end of the year. For Ghana has a seasonal cycle of buying more and importing more goods and services during the Christmas era. So obviously there was going to be enormous pressure on the domestic currency. So I am of the view that the central bank could have begun to arrest the situation, putting in more dollars just after the Christmas holidays, and also knowing that the risk factors are high. It didn't have to wait for all this while for the cedi to almost getting out of hand as we are witnessing.
Let me pick your brains on this. The central bank also talks about the fact that development in advanced countries, especially the United States, have resulted in foreign exchange market pressures on emerging market economies, which include Ghana. So the central bank is saying that, perhaps these developments internationally might be responsible for all these.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how integrated the country is into the financial system or the global financial economy. Because, we are not the only country in sub-Saharan Africa. There are about 52 countries. But we could see that the countries that are mentioned is only Ghana. The other country is South Africa, right? So, which means that there's something fundamentally wrong with our economy. Of course, we know that the tapering off that is going on in the U.S., where there is no longer cheap money, so that institutional investors can bring their money here and invest, is reversing. There's what we call the sudden reversal. And you are often impacted heavily with sudden reversal if your financial system is integrated into the global financial market. So you can realize that all the countries that have been mentioned, countries like Argentina, countries like South Africa, countries like Turkey, Malaysia, and all those countries are countries that have actually over-liberalized their financial system. And so when there's any conditions, any changes in conditions in the global market, it affects these countries the most because of the way they are integrated. So some of us have mentioned that it is quite dangerous at this stage of our development for the country to have an unbridled opening of our capital market to foreign investors. Now we have about 30% of our domestic bonds or domestic borrowing being held by foreigners. And all these things are quite crucial because these monies can easily leave the borders of the country within seconds. That is what we call the sudden withdrawal or the sudden reversal. And when they do that, it means that they are changing their monies back to dollars and sending them away. And that can put a whole lot of pressure. So it depends on how you position your country. All this can happen, but if you have a very resilient economy, if you have a very strong fundamentals, it can happen, but it may not affect you that much as it is affecting us.
Let's stay with this issue of the black market, where you find people in certain corners changing foreign currency. Right. Can we, as a country, the central bank, how do we deal with it?
Yeah, it's a huge problem, but I think it's not unsurmountable. It can be done because it's about enforcing the regulations. I think there are clear regulations that regulate the foreign currency, regime in this country. But it appears to me that the central bank has sat back to allow the situation to almost get out of control, because the whole the black market is very well integrated into the financial system now, to the extent that some of them even have connections with the mainstream banking system. And the banks go there to take money, and they also supply them with money and all. And so if the central bank wants to do something, then it has to come out with a very clear, unambiguous policy to discourage the system from flourishing. That it has to come out with rules and regulations that will not make it any longer profitable for people to go in, to the extent that people can even be jailed and all that. Once you begin to do that, then people will know that you are serious. Because there's always that second window of opportunity, to the extent that even if the banking, within the banking system or the banking transfer, the depreciating rate is 2.5, if you go to the black market with 2.8, you understand? So there's a kind of dual economic system that is going on. And I don't think for any serious economy, particularly a lower middle income like this, we should allow this to happen. It's a high time the central bank come out with a stringent regulation to regulate the foreign exchange market.
Let's look at some of the measures the central bank is trying to use to control this. It talks about the fact that there will be foreign currency account restrictions and restrictions on foreign currency denominated loans, repatriation of export proceeds, margin accounts for import bills, as well as revised operating procedures for forex bureaus. Now, if these are done, can we then say that perhaps we are getting back on track?
Exactly so. I think it's a good beginning, although one could say that it's a bit late in the day. But it's a good beginning for the central bank to begin to realize that there were too many loopholes in the foreign exchange market. And so for what it has done, for me, they have done well to come out boldly with these kind of measures. Except that, in this country, we have always suffered from implementation and enforcement.
Exactly.
You can, every year, central bank comes out with regulations, it comes out with policies, but the same problem keeps going on and on, because we don't have the will, the power to enforce it. You understand? So if the central bank can enforce it to the letter, then I believe they are good policies. I even believe that, for example, the one that it says that you can only cash foreign currency at counter when you are traveling, I think it should even go beyond that. Because the issue is, once you are in this country, people should know that you don't need the dollar to transact or to do business. So long as you step foot in this country, whatever dollar that you have to change it to domestic currency. And that is what is done in all countries. And you only need it when you are traveling out. So I believe that system, if you want to change domestic foreign currency, you should be able to do it only at the airport. Okay? And then that will clearly show that indeed you are leaving the country. Then you have a way of changing your domestic currency to foreign currency, then you travel with it. Otherwise, if you leave it open like this, anybody at all can go and tell the bankers that, well, I'm traveling and I need $10,000. Would you think the bank will have the time to cross-check his visa, his ticket, and everything? So I think it should go further than that to try to make it a bit more stringent, and for foreigners and for everybody that does business in this country to know that the only medium of exchange in the country is the Ghanaian cedi, and that's all.
Some of the opinion that we will be talking about it. Let's use the Ghana cedi, but you go to the shops and items are priced in the dollar. Now, with the central bank faced with such a situation, what should it do?
Can you come again?
I'm asking that you hear every day that there's a need to use the Ghana cedi in trading. You go to the shops, the items are priced in cedis. The central bank has issued a directive, don't do that. And yet, you will not be surprised to find the same thing being done, and the central bank simply not being able to stop the practice. Can we copy from other jurisdictions?
Yeah, we can. Why not? We can. The central bank has to begin to, begin to sort of bring in some kind of punishment to serve as deterrent. Because there's nobody has ever been punished. No business has ever lost its license by doing that. And so people still feel that there's a way to go around it. So even though the central bank keep coming out with policies and regulations, it has become more like a white elephant, a toothless bulldog. So it doesn't bite, and so people keep doing it. But if the central bank begins to bite and begins to bite hard, definitely people will begin to feel the pinch. It will deter companies and firms and enterprises that keep flouting the rules. So if you go to South Africa, South Africa is very well integrated into the world financial system, but it is difficult for you to use your dollar. You have to, whatever that you buy, even when you are in the hotels, you have to go and change your money into the rand. Okay, otherwise you cannot trade, you cannot buy anything. And even before you change your dollar, they will ask you to bring your passport to state what you are going to use it for and everything to keep those data. So it's not an easy thing. And I think if the central bank begin to enforce the rules, things can get better. It can really get better, except that the central bank has not been too up to the task, although it is trying, coming out with very good policies, but the implementation and enforcement has always been the problem.
Dr. Sibe, I'll let you go quickly, but before that, let's look at the medium to long-term measures that the bank proposed. It says that it's asking government to seek to broaden the tax base and diversify and broaden the export base while reducing the imports of consumption goods, which have local substitute. These are not new. And so, for me, they don't make any difference.
Exactly so. Exactly so. They are not new at all. We all know, we often hear that the central bank should broaden the tax net, should reduce imports, should increase exports. They are not new, but of course they are very good ones. Those are the structural policies that we need to ensure that this country is able to reverse the unfortunate thing of always having rapid depreciation of its city. If we are able to stick to this, for example, if the government is able to broaden its tax net, the fiscal deficit will be reversed.
Right.
And the government will always be able to stay within its expenditure ambit. But that is not all. You can mobilize all the money that you can or is available. If you don't discipline yourself in your expenditure pattern, it will amount to nothing. Yeah, you get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so it's not just about saying it that the central bank should do. We should see pragmatic steps that could indicate that indeed something is being done about it. Okay? So they should go beyond just advising to come up with clear steps, clear policy direction, that this and that is what we should do. With respect to export-based expanding, what are the policies? What are the central bank policies or the central government policies to export the non-traditional exports in this country? What are the tax incentives? We often give tax incentives to multinationals that comes into this country, to the extractive industries and all. But our own pineapple producers and others that bring back the foreign exchange to this country, we don't give them any incentives. Okay, so our export is so very shallow. We don't export more. And so long as the trade imbalance exists between us and the United States and other countries, the currency will continue to depreciate.
Dr. Sibe, thanks so much for speaking to us. Dr. Sibe is an economist with the University of Ghana. They're talking to me. Samson Aklego is with Data Bank. He's just joined this discussion. Let me pick a few thoughts from him. Samson, thanks for staying there for us. Hello, Samson.
Hello.
Thanks so much for staying there.
Hello.
Well, I have difficulty hearing Samson Aklego with Data Bank, but the Bank of Ghana has increased the policy rate from 16 to 18%. The Bank of Ghana is saying that weak domestic fundamentals is a reason for doing that, and this is expected to cushion the Ghanaian cedi, which has seen some fall in the past few weeks right after. Just spoke to Dr. Sibe of the University of Ghana, tried hard to speak to Data Bank's Samson Aklego if he's on the line. Samson, can you hear me? Well, I guess Samson too. Hello, Samson, can you hear me?
Are you? Hello?
Hello, Samson.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right, thanks so much for staying there. And there was so much was expected from the governor of the Bank of Ghana. The fall of the cedi had attracted a lot of concerns. The governor told us today that weak domestic fundamentals is the reason, or one of the reasons why the policy rate was raised from 16 to 18%. The bank is also talking about several other measures to cushion the cedi and perhaps stop the fall that we are experiencing. Were you excited about what the governor said?
Well, I think that the market was really expecting the increase in the policy rate. And clearly, I think that the increase in the policy rate is a significant, actually, policy initiative. And to the extent that some people will be, especially portfolio investors, will be interested in Ghanaian assets, we could see some inflows coming in. And that is very critical at this time as well, especially when we want to look at probably this quarter. So yes, certainly, I think the interest rate decision is widely, it was expected, and it was a strong signal to the market. And we hope that when all the balance of rates is looked at, we'll get investors, especially portfolio investors, who really would have dollar assets being interested in the country in the short term. Another significant increase would have had is to make city access attractive, but with the rules or directives that the central bank has come out with, clearly, I do know the extent to which that will be practicalized is not very strong, because already there are strong disincentives for holding dollar as maybe as an alternative asset. So people really, in the short term, don't have a choice than to sell their dollars and, of course, go into city assets. So in the domestic front, really the increase really is not going to change. It's not going to change much. I think that if you look at the decision on the policy rate, it will certainly be welcomed by the market.
Right. Samson, that perhaps is good news to you, but tell me, the Bank of Ghana deciding to move the policy rate up from 16 to 18%. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for anyone walking into a bank for a loan? What does it mean for the businessman out there?
Oh, yeah. Certainly, increasing the interest rates from the central bank's point of view means that it's signaling to the domestic economy that credit should go up. But to be honest, in practice, the market is much aware of things that will push interest rate up. So even if the central bank refuses to do that, the market would have done it anyway in different forms. So the central bank is all in supporting the direction that the market is going to take and giving a clear signal based on the leading indicator of which the policy rate seeks to serve that, yes, we are aware of it. We want to, at a broad level, try to sanitize the economy. And you see, we should be very, very mindful of the fact that when you have short-term instability, some of these tools really are the things that we have available to the central bank. And broadly, the challenges on this happening is reflective of the broader challenges in the economy. So I do not think that from the policy side, it is something that we can avoid for now, especially if we have a situation whereby the currency depreciation itself is going to fall like inflation through imports. So again, it's the same. Whammy for the country.
Right, Samson. Let's explain this before I let you go. Now, businesses, especially Ghanaian businesses, have been complaining about the high interest rates, and yet you seem to say that the policy moving from 16 to 18 should be good news for them when interest rates will go up.
No, you see, I wouldn't say that for the businesses. I don't think that it should be good. It will really be good news for them. But you see, what I'm trying to also say is that yes, it's going to increase short-term interest rates now, but it is something from the central bank's point of view that must be done in order to ensure that even interest rates come down in the future. Because if we don't do that today, what is going to happen is that we're going to have a situation whereby inflation will not be reigning in inflation, or even the currency is going to fall, maybe multiple inflation. And if the economy, the business cycle is not smooth, what is going to happen is that the business would even suffer over the medium to long term. So yes, it's more like it is supposed to be a short-term thing that will stabilize the market. But unfortunately, the fundamental reasons why interest rates are very high, the reasons why the central bank is even having to increase the policy rate, we don't have structural policies to solve them. And so far as we do not have a coordinated policy, as a country, we're going to have issues of the private sector competitiveness as a result of this weak policy and inconsistent policies that we have been implementing.
And finally,
from the fiscal side.
And finally, so you're saying that it is a bitter pill that we need to swallow today to cure the system?
Yeah, when you have inflation, in fact, if you have, in a country like Ghana, when you have the currency depreciation, you have the inflation expected to be outside the policy horizon, it is something that, of course, a pill that we have to swallow to stabilize the business cycle and hopefully move forward. But, of course, I can't put my bets on moving forward because there are inherent challenges in the economy that will prevent us from really getting interest rates really low to a level that is acceptable and that would make businesses competitive.
Samson, thanks so much for speaking to me.
You're welcome.
Samson Aklego is with Data Bank, and we have been talking about the Bank of Ghana decision to push the policy rate from 16 to 18%, and it is wrapping up the first part of the big story. The interactive segment is coming up in just a moment, and we'll be getting you more on what the governor told Ghanaians today. A decision, according to some analysts, is a bitter pill we need to swallow today to cure the system for tomorrow. We'll have more later on at 8 o'clock. Stay with me. Gladys is returning with me in a short while. You're welcome back to the big story, the second part that deals with you, and you deal with us. You get to us and we get to you. This is the interactive segment, and Gladys has just joined me. A lot of issues today, and of course one of the key ones is FGM.
FGM, yes. The women are talking. They are talking out loud. But today also happens to be a day set aside for zero tolerance to FGM.
We don't want it.
We don't want it.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nana. Right, so on GN Interactive, we are discussing a delicate cultural issue, female genital mutilation, FGM, or better still, female circumcision. Well, so FGM is an unlawful cultural practice. People who go through female genital mutilation are exposed to so many health hazards and their sexual rights taken away.
From God's own knowledge, the clitoris has a very vital role it plays in sex. So if somebody sitting in his village decides to take it off, come on, it's an insult to God.
Proponents of female genital mutilation say the practice is meant to control the sexual drive of women, so they remain faithful to men. To men, we ask, will you want your woman to go through female genital cutting? To women, will you allow your children to go through female genital mutilation? Some women who have gone through the practice have a story to share.
Those of us that they've circumcised, we do go a lot of stigma from our colleagues. They do tease us, oh, this person, you know, enjoy sex, because the clitoris is the most sensitive part of the female genitalia, which makes one enjoy sex most.
I always have difficulties when having sex with my husband. The second thing is that anytime I am to deliver, I have to go through a cesarean session, which is more painful than having a natural delivery.
All right, so this is how you get to be part of our discussion here on Joy News on JN Interactive. You could join us via social media platforms, facebook.com/Joy News on TV, or send us a Twitter on twitter.com/Joy News on TV. The handles are at Joy News on TV and #JN Interactive. Email us via joynewsim@multitvworld.com, and let's get the discussion rolling. Share with us your opinion, your comments. What you think is the way out? Should we let it continue? Join us right here and let's do this conversation together. Right, so today is zero tolerance of FGM. We go personal with a young woman, Kurima, who has gone through FGM, to share her story. But Kurima has gone through, and she eventually has become an advocate to ensure that she does not let this practice continue. Right, so Kurima will be joining us very soon, but let me catch a breather here. Right, so you have been sharing your comments already. Let's see what you have been telling us on WhatsApp. So our first WhatsApp comment says, it's coming from Gilbert Asylum, and he says, female genital mutilation, FGM, does not totally control libido, but diminishes the sexual desires of the woman. I don't intend marrying a lady who has undergone FGM. That's coming from Gilbert. That's quite unfortunate. Well, so if every man would deny all the FGM women, it means they can't have, well. Obed Bonua says, never in my life. Well, I hope you're referring to whether you would let your daughter go through that. Edu Boateng says, control what? It is inhuman. Right. So, let's see. Godson says, a bad practice. I was so sad when I watched that beautiful lady on Adom TV this morning. Well, yeah, it really is a sad story. Well, Carl Ediaiko says, there's nothing culturally wise about FGM. Why make love to a woman without libido? Total waste of energy. That's very sad. Well, let's see. Let me just take about two more. Kofi Brufa says, not at all. Allow them to grow and make their own decisions. Well, I agree with you, Kofi. Yeah. Henry Agbo says, I don't think so. It's really a bad practice. Henry Agbo thinks it is a bad practice. It must stop. Nielsen says, I don't think we have people in Ghana still practicing it. Well, Nielsen, it actually is happening. And please stay glued to your set. You'll be hearing people share their experience and the fact that it is still very much being practiced. Governor Emmanuel says, Chia, does it a bad practice? I was so sad. That's coming from Governor. I like the way you spell your Governor. Okay, Yaya Umar says, it's uncultured and barbaric to our religious teachings. That's coming from Umar Yaya. It is uncultured and barbaric to our religious teachings. Right, so let me quickly join Kurima, who has joined us via Skype to share her experience with us. Kurima, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In which way has FGM affected you?
Yes, it has affected my life in so many ways. My relationship and all that, I can't like have a guy to myself because of this practice. When a guy gets to realize you've been cut, they go away without any reason. And let's say I'm not the only one. Those who happens to get married, they face problems when they are going to give birth. Because when you are going to give birth, it's 50-50. Either you give birth and you'll be okay, or your child will not be. Either your child die or you will be alive. The thing is, there is something that is linking between the anus and the vagina. Sorry for my language.
Okay, that's fine.
Before you can give birth as a victim, that thing needs to open or tear open before you can give birth. Yeah. And the pain you pass through is far different than somebody who happened not to be a victim. The reason being, when this scar takes time to open or tear, it goes against the unborn child. Even if this child is not dead, but at the end, the child, he or she will face problems, mentally they'll face problems. And if this scar happens to tear with force, you end up by overbleeding, and which can result to death. That's the mother. And let's talk about those who are infected due to this practice. The knife they use in cutting us, they don't clean it after cutting one person.
Whoa.
They rather cut two and cut another person.
I see.
And which leads to infections, STDs, AIDS, and the rest.
Kuriba, let me find out from you. Do you have a boyfriend currently?
I don't have.
Have you ever had a boyfriend?
I ever had, but because of these problems, I decided not to go in for one again. Because how many guys will I keep on changing before I'll get someone who understands me? So I decided not to go in for any guy again, but rather I'll wait for the one who understands me and would like to marry me with my condition.
Let me also find out, so has the practice actually controlled libido and making the women up there more faithful and not what they think you would do if they did not catch you?
Well, let's say the practice has not made most of the women there faithful. For me, as they said, they want you to preserve your virginity till you get married. It's wrong. I decided to break my virginity when I was 20 years old because I wanted to also try the pains that they're talking about. And those women there, let's say, still, if I go through the pains, fine, I go through the pains. But do you think I should stick with a man who maltreats me and all that? They don't, and they are not faithful.
I see. So you have dreams of also having a family someday, your own family, and to going through this. How many more women in your town have had to go through this trauma?
If I not get your question wrong.
Kurema, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so basically I'm trying to find out how many more young women have had to go through this trauma, and how is education like to the elderly who are very much involved in the practice?
Yes, for now, I'm thinking no girl should be cut again. Because I'm trying to educate them. Let's say before they gave birth to me, they tried, the government leaders or whoever tried to educate my people on this. But let's say then they've not had enough education to me. So I want to direct it in a different way to stop this practice.
I see. So supposing a girl who is ready, who is due for the initiation, refuses to do it, what happens?
You don't even have to refuse. You have to be cut.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice.
I see. So if you run away, what happens? It means that you can never go back to your town.
Fine. Will you run away with your mother?
I see. So what happens?
The thing is, you end up by putting your mom or your parents into trouble because they may see that they advise you to run away. So you end up by putting them into trouble, especially your mom. Do you know that none of the women don't have a say?
I see. So,
yes.
I don't want to go to poke too much. Let's just talk about, I can see in your T-shirt, Kurema Foundation. What is it about?
It's about, it's my foundation, which is about female genital mutilation. I want to stop the practice and also go ahead to find solutions for the victims to also enjoy sex once in their lifetime. Even though there is a surgery, but I keep on saying surgery should not be our only hope. How many people can afford this surgery? I believe there is a way we women and we victims can enjoy sex once in our lifetime without going through this surgery. There is a way we can give birth without our scalp being tearing. There is a way we can treat ourselves, especially when we have these urinary problems and all that. Surgery should not be our only hope, and it's not even going to be our hope, not to be our only hope.
Let me also try to find out how much of your hopes have you achieved? Do you hope to stop this practice? How far have you gone?
I've tried educating people through media. I've not gone home yet because I think now if I go home, if I try talking to them, they wouldn't listen because last year I tried doing it, but they said I should keep quiet. Others have gone through it. I'm not going to be the first or last they are going to practice it on. So educating people through media to help me to go back there and fight this practice.
I say, Kurema, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Kurema is one of the women who have gone through the female genital mutilation and have every bad memory about it. They, according to her, they at least want to enjoy sex once in their lifetime. of course, they deserve it too. Well, you have been talking to us. Let's take more of your comments on this issue.
No, I won't allow my daughter to do such a thing because even the Bible did not ask us to do it. It is a practice. So if you like, you can go for the practice. But to me, in our other part of the world, we don't do those practices. So I'll not allow my daughter to do such a thing. She has to know the feelings of a woman. So that's her right. And I think she deserves it.
I will not agree to marry that woman because actually I will not feel comfortable when I'm doing something with her. Yeah, so I can't marry her.
Not at all. I wouldn't allow my daughter to go through that. And the reason is, I don't see why it should be done. At the end of the day, those who have gone through such thing, it's hurtful. It's something they go through pains. So why should I allow my daughter to go through that? Well, that's when I will say it's my son's choice. So it's yes and no, like I said. It will depend on him if he thinks he can manage that woman, because I learned those people have a hard time being with a man. So if he can cope with it, that's fine with me.
So, like I announced earlier, today is FGM Day, and the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection has issued a press release. I would like to take excerpts of the release concerning the World FGM Day. So, as the world marks International Day of Zero Tolerance of Female Genital Mutilation, FGM, today, 6th February, the ministry calls on all and sundry to join the fight against this human rights violation of girls and women. FGM is a human rights violation that affects an estimated 5 girls each minute worldwide. Another 180,000 girls are at risk of being subjected to FGM each year. The practice of FGM is still ongoing in Ghana in spite of national and international laws that prohibit it. So it talks a bit, well, national statistics show that an average of about 4% of Ghanaian girls and women between the ages of 15 and 49 years have gone through the practice. While this percentage is lower compared to other countries around the world, the real numbers of girls and women affected translate into hundreds of thousands. Current statistics in comparison to those of 30 years ago indicate a decline in the practice. Even though majority of Ghanaian communities are shunning the practice, parts of the country still practice it in spite of the social associated dangers. Well, so it goes on and say recognizing the practice as a violation of women's human rights and as a form of child abuse, and in line with the United Nations General Assembly resolution that urges states to pursue a comprehensive, culturally sensitive, systematic approach to addressing the problem. Government of Ghana is promoting interventions that will help end the practice, and these include improving support for victims, protection of women and girls at risk, as well as the enforcement of anti-FGM laws. So those are just excerpts of the press release by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. Right, so let me also go to Facebook and find out, but we really do hope that as the press release states, we would have law enforcement to really get this corrected, and so that women up there who have to go through that traumatized experience would have the freedom and also be complete women. They don't have to be denied of any personal right, any private right. They also are human, just like you and I, and they deserve. My question is, if the women their libido is being controlled, how about the men? They equally have to be controlled. Their libido is also equally higher. Well, don't let me get personal as female here. Right, so let's see what you have been telling us on Facebook. We said female genital mutilation, FGM, is a strong cultural practice. The people who believe in it say it is important to control libido. Will you marry a woman who has gone through FGM? To women, will you allow your girls to go through the practice? Teria Lico says it's bad culture, must be stopped. Yvonne says, as a woman, it's a big no from her. Abdul Ganiyu says it's unfortunate people still cherish this act. Let's see. Okay, why injured? Well, I wish I could read the language. Forgive me, Abdullah, but let me try. Why injured? Okay, I hope it makes sense. I don't know. Stephen says FGM must be stopped. It's not a good practice at all. It can be so hurting to our dear ladies. I may not marry such persons. That's unfortunate. Richard Jemba says, if you understand culture and who instituted it, then let it be. I see, Richard. Mahama Bashit says, no. Let us all help to stop this act. This is the song against FGM. Refuse Amigos featuring G. Cliff. Well, let's support the song, please. I hear you, Mahama. Okay, so Alifa says, no, 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 not at all. I will marry such a lady. It is not accepted. Well, so Elikem says, this is crazy indeed, crazy. Clemento Ario says, why will you cut? Won't you, didn't put... well, forgive me. God never made mistake to create and let it be there. Please let them be it. Well, you basically are trying to tell us that we should allow it to be there. In God's wisdom, He knew the woman would need it, so He placed it there. Prince Yabwa says, I wouldn't accept this in my family. Ayiwa Patience says, double no. Okay, so Alifa says, chia, not good, oh, na bad practice that, oh. Amano Raphael says it must not be accepted. Stephen Mensah says culture. Yeah, Can they even create human hair? Yeah, so I agree with you. Rahim says, though FGM is bad, we shouldn't lose sight about the importance to reducing the libido of our women folk because they tend to be sexually active very early than the men folk. So eventually, when the men also, Rahim, when the men also develop their libido, are they controlled? Answer that for me too. Jabril says, Chia, I would not, wickedness and barbarism. Well, Wallo Ken says, yes, indeed, it reduces libido. What about the dangers? Let's scrap it now. Okay, Simon says, Chia for the way. It's bad and should be stopped. Kum Naga says, Apu. FGM lady for what? Oh, Kumnaga. That's well. Ahiamaji Felix says, no, a woman who does not feel for sex is not natural. Please, they should stop dehumanizing girls in the name of culture. Well, Desmond Etona Motte says, who give them the right to control people's libido? Who give them the right? Well, have they controlled their own libido? Dashland Dixon says, I will marry her. It's not a Dashland. Yeah, sounding a bit too explicit. Well, so let's see. Ojomo Olaita says, lie. Yeah, lie. So let's see. Nana, would you let...
There was a long chair there.
I skipped it. I didn't want to. But would you let your daughter go through the FGM?
No.
Why?
No. I mean, Gladys, it's dehumanizing. It's not a practice that is good. I mean, despite the fact that it's part of our culture, I think that we can reform it and make it more decent.
We should find better ways of controlling that libido.
Exactly. Let's talk about what to expect at 8 o'clock. We'll take you to the Western region, precisely in Zulezu, where we're told that education is not the best. Teachers have refused posting and to stay in the community. Now, those who stay are uncomfortable because they fear living on stilts, and so they are running away. Some amateur journalists have filmed that for us. We'll tell you more about it at 8 o'clock.
Well, we also would tell you about 4 candidates who are contesting for national executive elections of the opposition New Patriotic Party who have filed their nominations ahead of the official dates scheduled by the party to receive nominations. The details we'll bring to you at 8.
And also to come at 8 o'clock, we'll show you some roads in Accra that are in bad state as a result of it being used by heavy trucks, which are often overloaded. Don't forget that the stone and sand contractors are on strike because of the axle load issue. We'll get to more of these stories at 8 o'clock. And thanks so much for having stayed there. And we're going off for now, but we have more on this network. My name is Bright Nanamfo. My name is Gladys Osei Oreju. Thanks for your company.
From God's own knowledge, the clitoris has a very vital role in this sex. So if somebody sitting in his village decides to take it off, come on, it's an insult to God.